Periodization is not useful. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I'm just going to flat say this. A lot of people don't like to hear this, but it is the reality, and I'm saying this as a coach and a coach who knows lots of other coaches who work with elite lifters, and something most of us realize who've been doing this a very long time. There's no real evidence that periodization, as we think of it, actually really does anything. So the whole concept of periodization is breaking your training up into like sequential phases, whether it's linear, non-linear. The whole idea is oftentimes like 3-week blocks and often organized into mesocycles in which we rotate through things. And oftentimes it can be stuff like, well, we do 3 weeks of 10 to 12 reps, right? Then we'll go to 8, then 5s, then triples, and then we'll test a max, right? So it could be done over a course of 12 weeks, and then you restart this and go. Now, people will say things like, well, that the Russians used a lot of that and it produced, a lot of really strong lifters. It also broke a lot of really strong lifters. Because I would make the case that a lot of these big exercises, you have no business doing the really high reps. It's not optimal. It's not ideal, particularly for any period of time like that, like even 3 weeks. And by the same token, then accessory work would fall into the same thing. A lot of it's not suited for really low reps. So we start to question a lot of that. There's a reason a lot of coaches, and myself included, just like Louis Simmons, always said, yeah, the Western periodization just breaks people, right? It injures people. And he always had people mix everything every single week, right? We weren't done in phases. And even though people will call it non-linear or they'll call it concurrent periodization, but it's not periodized, meaning he would break stuff up into 3 performance elements and 2 of them are done every single workout. Right? It usually was max effort and then repetition effort and then dynamic effort and repetition effort in the same day. In other words, if they did max lifts and then they did hypertrophy work, then they did speed work or dynamic work followed by hypertrophy work. And then GPP was often done by his people almost every day, which is just your conditioning. So, and that could be done on the same days as those sometimes. So out of your 4 different pillars, sometimes all three of the 4 would be done in a single day. And it was common, and it worked. Kind of dispels the idea. And what people need to remember, a lot of times stuff with periodization, people go, but I got stronger. It's like, think about it this way. If you did 12 weeks of serious training, structured training with progressive overload, because that's what's happening in periodization, right? Let's say you ran that 3-week block and the weight got slightly heavier with the same reps. Like let's say you're doing 10s or 12s or whatever, and it increases just slightly over the 3 weeks. Have you done sufficient volume to gain muscle? Yeah. Okay. All right. The next one, you did the same thing. You with a slight amount of progressive overload. Maybe you started with 8s with a couple reps in reserve, and by the end of the 3-week wave, you're pretty much at 8 rep maxes because you've been adding a small amount, whatever, 1% of weight per week. And then you repeat the same thing. All you're doing is following time and progressive overload. Are you also doing accessory work on this? Most people are like, yeah, I'm not just doing 3 exercises, not just squat, benching, and deadlifting. So at the end of the 12 weeks, they're like, but I got stronger. I tested my maxes and they were up. So let me get this straight. You did hypertrophy work, so let's set aside the periodization part. You did hypertrophy work with progressive overload and you got stronger. Of course, they didn't actualize the extra strength till they got to the peak at the end, but is that even always true? That's not even always true, is it? A lot of times guys come in and set PRs without having done any really heavy work if they got a lot bigger, right? Your squat, your bench press are going to go up if you gain 5 pounds of muscle, even if you haven't maxed on them. That's just reality. What I'm suggesting is that a lot of the periodization is just voodoo to make the coaches look smarter. And the fact of the matter is, they have you training hard for 12 weeks. Well, you gained muscle. A lot of times, the periodization and the little programming trickery that coaches use is there to keep you distracted while they get you bigger. And I don't think people understand 1 pound of muscle growth should be a measurable increase in strength. You gain a full pound of true lean tissue of actual lean muscle, spread through your whole body, most of your lifts should go up measurably. You don't believe me? Think about noob gains. A lot of noobs, like when you really think of noob gains, you're only talking about 15 pounds of muscle, 20 pounds of muscle in the first year, right? How much do your lifts go up with that? A lot of times people are like, well, I mean, I put 100, 120 pounds on my squat and deadlift in that first year or more. Yeah. So all those lifts went up at least 5 pounds for every pound of muscle you gained or more. See where we're going with this? So, of course, people are getting stronger during it, but it's not the periodization magic that's doing it. It's the fact that they are progressively overloading hypertrophy work and enough volume to grow, and usually doing additional hypertrophy work. So even if the coach has you programming something special on the deadlift, but they've got you doing, see where I'm about to go with this? Oh, we'll do this where we'll do 3x3, and then we'll build up to 5x3, and then we'll drop it down to over 3 weeks, right? 3x3, then 4x3, then 5x3. And then we'll go heavier. We'll drop it down 3x2, 4x2, 5x2. Then we'll drop it down to singles. You see where I'm going with some of this? And they're doing this for weeks and weeks on your deadlift. And then people go, but I got stronger. It worked. In the meantime, the coach had them doing sets of 8 to 10 on good mornings and doing some reverse hyperextensions and doing rows and pull-ups and maybe some high rep hamstring curls so that their glutes, their hamstrings, their hips all got bigger, their erectors, their lats, all that stuff got bigger over that 10 weeks. All those muscles involved in the deadlift got bigger over those 10 weeks through all this hypertrophy work while still maintaining weights in the 90% or possibly higher range, which is what you need for neural drive on the deadlift. So why did you get stronger? Because of the periodization, because you followed that little scheme that they distracted you with? Or did the coach distract you with it while keeping you lifting heavy enough to maintain technique and improve neural drive, which you could have just done the 3x3 all the way through? You could have just left it right there and not done anything else. Done the same thing. No periodization, right? And then you got bigger. You got bigger. That's why your strength went up. It's very straightforward, but it's a distraction, right? The programming on the main lift is usually a distraction. It's the fact that you gained muscle while still lifting heavy. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.